people together. It helps you network. It obviously plants seeds, which when you plant seeds, then they create conversations. I feel like conferences are also a feel good thing, that if your cup is empty, the people around you will fill it up. And to me, that's the most important thing. I also know that our education system as a whole, both in Indigenous and non-Indigenous schools, our system is broken. And we heard that from Dr. Gordon Martell yesterday. And I know that some solutions can be applied right away, but we've got a long haul towards the relationship between students and teachers, the way that students look at the way they're being educated. It's hard. So I hope that the things that you learn will help you, will help me, will help all of us to try to navigate and try to do some repairing, try to do some reclaiming of those relationships, and to make an education system that is authentic, that is interesting for our students. And like the great Sanderson always said, our kids need to know who they are. Once they know who they are, once they know who the history of where their people are from, that academics will come easily. And that has always stayed with me. And so, yeah, I just wanted to, that's kind of my reflection from yesterday. We have an excellent lineup for you today. I do want to let a little secret in last night. One of the superintendents, I'm not naming any names, but her name is Lisa, forgot about Dr. Leroy Littlebear. He was at the airport. And we were doing multiple things last night. So we took off on a mission. She's like, well, let's just hop in your car, because I was still in my car, which I haven't washed yet. So it has all the res dirt on it. It has dog hair in the back seat, some mud on the seat. I was like, I'm not picking up Dr. Leroy Little Bear with my ugly car. So Lisa said, okay, 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 okay. So we took off across the street, hopped in her truck. So we're going down Circle Drive, and we passed Denny's, we passed Travelodge, Sandman, and we're going on that gradual curve by the Saskatoon Inn. I don't know if it's her playful spirit, but she decided to put her truck where the water was and made her truck completely dirty. And I said, Lisa, I said, well, now we're going to pick up Dr. Leroy Little Bear in a rezzed out truck. So everyone knows that I try to make I was joking around with Dr. Leroy Little Bear. I said, we need to tell you the truth of what actually happened, of why we're late. Can you see this dirty truck? I said, we were out 4x4ing in the fields of Saskatoon. So that's why we were late. And he chuckled a little bit. He was a very nice man, and we profusely apologized. And I also said, you know what, Dr. Leroy Little Bear, I told Lisa while we were coming here that if you got mad at us and you canceled Lisa's keynote, but he wasn't mad at us. So he's here today. We also have Willis Janvier from Clearwater. So those are your two keynotes. We have phenomenal, well thought out, authentic connections for all of our sessions today. Whichever one that you choose to go to, you will enjoy it. Just also a reminder that Jackie Alberts and Nikki Steininghorn are still doing their healing work. Lisa, is Dr. Leroy Little Bear here? Can I have the agenda, please, on the screen? All right, so it's Dr. Leroy Bear in the Little Bear, sorry, in the afternoon in Willis. Whoever signed up for Willis's introduction for the keynote, can you just give me wave your hand a bit, please? Okay. So we don't, oh, look we actually start at 9:15, so I have a few more minutes. So our sessions after, we obviously will have fireside chat with Willis. And then our first session our only sessions in the morning is moose hair tufting. I don't think that I've ever gone to a conference or looked over a conference that has moose hair tufting. So we are really blessed for Canoe Lake for bringing that knowledge and that skill to this conference. AJ Felix will be doing language revitalization. He is a pioneer. If you do any kind of Googling with AJ Felix, you will see tons and tons of short video clips of him talking about language and how he has developed resources to help with that. So we're really honored to have him with us as well. Minnestickwin Lake, beaded lanyards. So another way for us to express ourselves. And we also know when we do skills with our hands and as we connect them with our heart and our mind, good conversations, healing stories come out while we're all working together. And I think that that's the most favorite thing that I look forward to when we sit down and do skills. And then Buffalo River Dene Nation will be doing Dene Asla and TPR. Back in 2017, when we had our very, very first Full Circle conference, when we had our senior director at the time, Heather's here. Heather, give me a big wave. Where's Heather? Crazy dance, do something. Oh, she must have went downstairs. 2017, we had a vision, and that vision came from, I can give the 100% credit to the SBAs. The SBAs said, why don't we have an annual conference? And why don't we look at this conference as a way for us to showcase some of the special things that we are doing in each and every one of our schools? So that because we don't always have that time to go to all of our 9 nations and check in the schools to see what they're doing. And so they put the task upon the administration and the team at MLTC. And so they literally put that breath of life into this Full Circle conference. This Full Circle conference, even though it is open up to everybody in the world, is for our 9 nations. It's for our educators. It's for our chief and council. It's for our elders. So that's really, really important. And in the afternoon, we'll have Dr. Leroy Littlebear. The afternoon sessions, can I please have the agenda up, please? Will be Dwayne Lasasse. We'd seat Dwayne. MLTC, they are going to show you how through their curriculum instruction and assessment team, how that we've mitigated, how that we've had tough conversations, crucial conversations about when we're talking about let's get our kids back onto the land, because that's how they're going to know who they are and then connect it to the curriculum. Let me repeat that. We want our kids to get on the land and know who they are and do all those things that the earth has to teach us, which has the language, which has the history, the culture. But as teachers, we have this Western paradigm. We have this Western way of thinking that when we went to school, we were indoctrinated with methodologies to go and say, this is how our students will learn. And this is how you have to do it. Leave the language out, leave that culture out, and leave that identity out. And I'm not lying to you. It is really hard for us to unlearn that. But I know we are embracing changing our mindset. So the curriculum instruction and assessment team are going to show you that we've found a way. Have we found the way? No. But we've found a way. And hopefully when we get and share with that, and you see it with your eyes, and you can take then your expertise and your knowledge and make it work for you. And then we have Shelazon LaRue. She's from one of our communities, I believe, BNDN. She's going to be spending the afternoon with us. And then Tammy Shikotko. Tammy Shikotko has been seconded from the health. She's originally like a nutritionist, but she got seconded to the U of S, and we have a partnership with them on food school programming. How Tammy Shikotko has done research to try to make sure our kids are fed all day in our schools, because if you're hungry, you can't learn. And then she's already gone that extra way to go and say, the food that we get off the land, how do we incorporate that? How do we safely prepare it? How do we safely store it so that our kids can eat from the land? It's a very, very, very good day today. And then Dwayne Lasasse, who is gifted with the flute, will then put us through some healing therapy. So it's going to be a very good day. I do want to, yep. Oh, 909. Lisa's up here, so she wants to say something. Right now? All right, we're going to do door prizes. We're going to do a few of them. So am I looking at Jan? Jan? All right. Who's the first person that's lucky? You know what? Do they get to pick what they want, or are you going to give them what they get and don't get upset? Holy man, look at how MLTC is such a blessing. Lisa said you get to choose. All right, there you got the wheel there. I did make 3 skirts. I didn't wear them because my daughter told me, Mom, that's gross. Don't wear the skirts this time. It's called the Wapaskau collection, the white collection. One skirt is called Berry Picking. Another skirt is called Tea with My Cookum. And then the other skirt is called 7 Generations of Prayers. So who's the first person that's up?
Okay, good morning. First person coming up is going to win. What is this? A trail cam.
Oh, they don't get to pick that?
Oh, they get to choose.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Nobody fight me here. Kathy Hansen. Kathy Hansen, you have to be here. We'll give you 5 seconds to run up.
1 elephant, 2 elephant, 3 elephant, 4 elephant. Oh, there she is right on.
Let's see your ID first. Just kidding. See your treaty card.
Congratulations, Cindy.
Bye. Okay. Okay. Again.
Hillary.
Leanne Iron.
Leanne
Iron. Iron over to Dennis Iron. Leanne Iron. Is that you? No? 1, 2, 3. Redraw.
Hillary, I think I'm going to give you Mike. We're going to work the room sometime today, or if not even tomorrow morning, okay? Because we're really good at working the room together. Okay.
Marcella Iron. Related to Leanne Iron? Right on.
Yay. Congratulations, Marcella.
Congratulations.
Where we get going?
Speakers, trail cam. If you're a hunter, if your boyfriend's a hunter, or you go to Walmart, can't put them up.
Crystal and Shield.
Crystal Star. We hear a large roar over there.
Congratulations,
you?
Crystal.
Is that you, Crystal? Okay. It's just real shy, just covering her face.
Drawn.
4 more draws.
Payak, Nista, and then can you count in 4 and Dene, please, Willis?
Okay.
Yeah, Payak.
Haley Jackknife. Shaylee Jackknife. Shaylee Jackknife. Anywhere? Isai, Nake, Tai, Dean, Sonlai, you're out.
Okay.
Nothing?
How come when they come up here, they gotta sign their name too?
Okay, you got to sign your name here. No X's though. Full name. David Ruling.
Yay, David. Good job, David.
David is here.
Up from Clearwater. Over here. Over
David,
there,
yeah.
David. Looking. Yeah.
Smile for the camera. John, what's that history? No, Zeta's anyway. Maryville, the Hintian trail camp. Anybody trespassing?
Yeah.
Mercredi Simmons. Simons or Simmons? Mercredi.
Thank you. I'll just
Thank you. John.
see this.
Nazin, please. Shai Nake Kai Simons Mercredi Simons. So là, you're out. Three more. We got three more. We got to have three more out of 500 people here. Kathy Nocho. Kathy Nocho. Where's the Dylan crowd?
Oh, the thing shut off.
Kathy
This thing died. Where's Jan?
or Jan? Jan. Astam Kosigal.
Laptop died.
Your laptop died. Your laptop died.
Yeah, draw that. Just told Patricia say we're gonna just.
So the laptop died, so we'll do the draws after this.
All right. Just before we get Willis up here for him to share his knowledge, I just wanted to share a story with you. A couple years ago, I was in Banff and I went up to Sulphur Mountain and there was a blizzard up there and it was really foggy and it was also the full moon. I went and I put some tobacco down and I said to the spirit of the Sasquatch, I said, if you want to come and see me, I promise I won't be afraid. Come. I never seen him or her. I never seen the spirit until yesterday. When we were in the pipe ceremony, I was kind of sitting like this, but I was looking where our pipe holders and our men were sitting. But something was rattling at the door, and I was like, "Is somebody trying to come in?" But being a little bit, trying to be discreet and quiet. But then, as I was just listening, I seen a giant man in between Rod Abscess and the other pipe carrier. And I don't often talk about those things because I've seen them all my life. So I told Melinda, and Melinda said that that's who they prayed that would come and come into our ceremony. The reason why I'm sharing that is because we really value spirit without valuing and having that balance of this of having the spirit with us in everything we do. We lose out on great opportunities. We don't make that ultimate connection without that connection to spirit. So I just wanted to share that. I'd like to call upon Liz Reed, the superintendent of MLTC, to do the keynote introduction. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Say good words, eh?
Good morning. Thank you, Patricia, for the wonderful opening. So I'd like to welcome Willis Janvier. He's from Clearwater River Dene Nation in Treaty 8 territory. Willis is passionate about his Dene language and cultural foundation. Dene Ate podcast reaches language learners and fluent speakers across Turtle Island. Willis's charismatic nature and colorful personality reflects his positive lifestyle. Advocating for mental health and a holistic wellness approach is a passion of his. As the first Dene podcaster, Willis is actively trailblazing a pathway for the Dene language as a linguistic artist. Willis Janvier shares his journey about battling addictions and seeking the help necessary to recover from drugs and alcohol to live in sobriety. The importance of language and culture as a tool for recovery to create a strong foundation. Sharing one's story is very powerful. You never know who you are going to connect with. You don't know who's listening or who needs to hear the message. I hope one day we can all support one another to live sober without shaming or guilting. Dene Yati podcast has been streaming on social media with guests from all over Turtle Island, sharing Dene Sulini values, culture, connecting learners and fluent speakers to learn more about their culture. Most importantly, hear their language and have easy access to it. So please help me in welcoming our keynote speaker this morning, Willis Janvier.
Thank you. Masi. Thank you. Masi Cho. Liz Reed. I thought I only sent in like a sentence, so I don't know how you. Thank you. Masi na Rusia. Dunzinik e sa banono MLTC dure sa kuhanet ten hanunt. I must see everybody. Zinik e dini il ta gimak ganda ya tia Chief Lawrence Labadon McIntyre, the presenters, Tribal Chief Richard Ben, for being vulnerable. No, but I thought before I came here, what am I going to present on? What am I going to share about? I thought, and then when I heard Richard Ben share himself and be vulnerable in front of all of you, I thought, okay, I can do this. So must see Willis Janvier, Houche, in Telas Tours in La Loche, Saskatchewan. Clearwater River Dene Nation band member has, and Duhuno Ganas Threade, Treaty 4 territory, Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. So thank you, Dante. And this morning, I'm going to move around a bit. So cameraman, just so you know, I have ADHD, so I can't stand still if anybody else has that issue too. But today I'm going to share my story with you guys, and it has a lot to do with addictions, growing up in a home that is dysfunctional, loving, caring, and nurturing, but also dysfunctional and alcoholism, right? But also my successes, overcoming addiction, and then providing language for everybody to listen to. Dene Yati is now heard worldwide. It's not because of me, it's because of the listeners, the Dene people. It is not my language, it's the people of the language of the people. But I grew up in a home that was loving, caring, and nurturing. And I'm going to use language today that I'm not going to swear at anybody. But it's language that we probably see all the time and never talk about, like cocaine and crystal meth and hurt and pain, and I'm sad. I grew up in a home where there was alcoholism. The local winos were like my uncles. We all have those on the res. I still remember them. Not a lot of them are with us today. My mom and dad would be together, and there were house parties that I would wake up to as a kid. You wake up in the middle of the night and Ernest Monias is playing. Hey? Or George Jones. DC and the Country Boys, if you're from Beauval. It was on cassette tape. But I got to see a lot of fights. Although there was love and nurturing, there was also a lot of chaos as well. And I share this story with you not to shame anybody, not to put anybody on the spot. Some of you know my family and my parents. And it's not to direct this in any way. I hope that we can learn from all of this and the things we go through. Up until I was 7 years old, my mom and dad were together. I grew up playing hockey. I remember seeing fights, both of them drunk, one stabbing the other. I can still see the wound today. I'm 35 years old now. For a young kid that doesn't know how to express their feelings, show emotion, because we're not taught how to say, I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling hurt. Why are you doing this? It builds anger and it causes isolation. For a young kid, anger is all I knew. I'm going to hurt you. Hurt people, hurt people. And that's how I would grow up. I grew up playing hockey. My mother raised us on welfare. She did everything she could. It is because of my mother I'm here today. The love and support that she has shown me. She's a hustler. When you're on welfare, you got to be a hustler, right? Sometimes there was bootlegging involved as a kid. You know, funny story. There was this gentleman that showed up in our yard. There was a group of us, me and my friends. We were playing, and he said, "Hey, go to the store for me to buy candy for my son." So okay, you know, he was going to give us $2, and we went. I came back. I come back to a house broken into, and my parents weren't there. And I wonder, what am I going to do here? What happened? I didn't know what was going on. Being on welfare, the system doesn't allow you to be successful. So they did what they had to do to survive. It is not their fault. That's all they knew. I'm not shaming them. This is just what I grew up in. For some kids, they might not understand why that they're going through this or be as resilient to recover from it. Maybe some of your students are going through that. The things I share with you today, because I grew up in the same town as some of you. By the time I was 7 years old, my mom and dad had split up. My dad just moved the street over with his new girlfriend, now wife. I miss my dad. I wish I had spent more time with him. I really miss him. That little boy, you know, if you haven't had your father around, you know what it's like. Maybe it's your mother. Maybe that old boy in you wanted to experience something. But he only lived a street over, and I never got to see him very much. He drank a lot. I remember he would come around to my hockey games, and one of my coaches asked me, he said, you know, your dad's always coming around, but he's always drinking. And I said, yeah, he's an alcoholic. Something a 10-year-old shouldn't say about his father. But that's all I knew. I said it in a way that had no emotion or anything attached to it. I just try to be stoic, you know, as men, we try to be stoic and tough. We don't show emotion. I see a lot of men in here. It's good to see. A lot of times we only have a woman in these conferences. So after my dad is gone and I could see him, he would come around on my birthday. He'd give me $100 bill and he'd be gone again. So it was like that. My relationship with him was always like that. By the time I'm 10 years old, my mother had met someone else. He's still in my life today, my stepfather. It wasn't so easy with him. You know, if you grew up with a stepfather around, you don't want him around, and you blame your mother for your dad leaving and all this stuff that accumulates over time. I always clashed with him. But by the time I'm 10 years old, I've been in 2 drug busts. At the time, it was marijuana. Marijuana was now it's legal. but he was a drug dealer. And when you're a kid and they're coming down and knock down the door in the middle of the night and you got to go to school the next morning, they're rummaging through the house, they tear up everything. And if you have experienced any of that, you know that they don't put everything back. Nothing. They get what they want and they're gone. As a young kid, when there's a cop watching you pee because they think you might be hiding something, maybe you're a part of this operation, if you will. One time my friend was with us. And when you grow up in a small town, you know that word gets around fast. And the next day, it's embarrassing to go to school and you had to deal with this in the middle of the night. Maybe some of your kids have experienced that. I spoke to a youth conference, and when I talk about these things, you see their body reactions. That's why I share this with you and I use the language that I do. Because it's about the young people. But after that incident, I said, this is no more. This is not happening anymore. I had to stand up for myself and my youngest sister. I grew up with an older sister and a younger sister. My mother, who raised us on welfare, said, I can't afford all of this sports you guys are playing. I can't afford to give you $50 or $100 to go on a sports trip. You can only pick one. So I picked hockey and my sister picked volleyball. She's a provincial champ, I do believe. But it's not easy being on welfare. You want things. Sometimes you got to put stuff on layaway at Red Apple. Some of you may know this. Or even COD. We're going to have money on this day, right? And when you grow up on welfare, you want things all the time. You know, when your kid is, how many people, when you're going to the store or you see some kid, they're crying for a toy or something, you're in Walmart, you just want to buy it for them because you know that was you. I get like that. So I was a kid that grew up wanting a lot of things. My mom did whatever she could to provide for us. We may have been broke, but we weren't poor. She showed love when she could. She sobered up. And growing up, I would always say, I'm not going to be like my dad. When I have kids one day, I'm going to show up. Because I know what it feels like to be empty and lonely for your father. Being raised by a single mother means you know how to do the women duties, you know, not to label anything. But I haven't. I was taught how to trap, and I haven't killed a moose. Today I have a Costco membership. I get my meat there. Or I bring a cooler when I go up north so I can get my moose meat. One of my events I attended, they gave me muskox. I've never tried it yet. So I'm very thankful. I can still provide. But I never grew up hunting and we would fish and do all that stuff. But I always said I wouldn't be like my dad when I grew up and have kids. By the time I was 13 years old, I had my first drink. Alcohol, which I didn't like. Marijuana, I didn't like because it allowed me to isolate. My mom and her friends and her boyfriend, they would sit and play card games. They would hotbox the house, and I'd be alone in my bedroom on MSN Messenger. You guys, hey, this generation probably knows about MSN. How many of you shacked up through MSN and are still together? Kita? You know, you're going online, offline, just to get your crush's attention. Or you had those 80 questions that you filled out and sent back through email. The name tag was really long, had special characters. Yeah, yeah. Hey, don't try to pretend. But that's what I would do. I would isolate and I would sit on the computer and I'd be pissed off. The anger would just build up. That's all I knew. That's all I knew was anger. I didn't know how to say, I'm feeling sad, I'm hurt. Can you stop doing this? I wasn't given that space in that moment. And I took my first drink with my oldest brother. I have an older brother. He was given away at birth. So we didn't grow up with him until I was much older. And I remember it was the grossest thing ever. It was Colt 45. If anybody had ever tried that, it's probably like pee. And I thought, I'm never going to do this again. This is the grossest thing ever. And I didn't. You know, I would continue playing hockey. Being a goalie is tough and very expensive. Any hockey players in here, you know, my mother would rack up the bill at the Northern so I can play hockey. And I'm very grateful for that today, that she gave me that opportunity. Being on welfare, and I could never repay her back. But by the time I'm 15 years old, I had my heart broken, had my first hickey. You know, you're real proud when you get your first hickey, eh? See, everybody just like, oh, what's this guy talking about? But I would start to stay out more. You know, I had a group of friends that I wanted to belong with. I thought I didn't belong, but which I already did belong with them, right? They're staying out late and I want to hang out with them. I know what they're doing. And eventually it got to that. I would go out more and we drink on the weekends, you know, you're pretending. I did what I saw as a kid. Growing up in La Loche, I grew up across from the community hall where they had dances. So I would peek out and I saw what people are doing. And now I'm doing it in my teens. Not all the time, but I'm dabbling with it. I'm messing with it. And I would continue living that way. I always wanted to leave La Loche. I never wanted to stay there. For some reason, I just wanted more and I was gonna leave. And that's what I did. After graduation, the next day, my mom's looking for me on the local radio station and because she was worried. And I left. I moved away for a couple months and I came back. I worked at the Northern for $10 an hour. Sadly, it burned down now. But I was trying to save money to buy goalie gear. And then she came in one day and said, you got a job in Fort McMurray. That was in 2006. I said, okay. You know, I've been in Fort McMurray, but I never seen the operations. I never seen the oil industry. And I would be driving these big trucks. Some of you who have been operators, you know what it's like. I would stay there for 14 years. You know, as a kid, when you grow up on welfare and you want a lot of things, and now you're making your own money, $21 is a lot of money for a kid that grew up on welfare wanting things. Now I can buy my own nice clothes and whatever I want. I'm going to work. I got a job, bought my goalie gear, continued playing, but now I'm partying more. Every time I went on days off, I'm partying. It was like a reward. I go to work for 6 days, I'm off for 6 days, so I reward myself. Go to tournaments. We were called the Rejects back then. And we like to party. We had a good time. For some people, I may have caused a lot of grief down there, Don. And we would, every Saturday, it became regular for us. We would play hockey, go to a dance, or play poker games. You see, now I'm doing what I saw as a kid. The poker games and going out to the dance, and now I'm doing it. The environment I was raised in, now I'm doing it because I feel that I am providing. I've got a job, I've got money. You feel grown. When I wasn't, my maturity level was probably 10. It's probably still a little low, but it's okay to acknowledge that. Every time I would go out, there would be some kind of incident that would happen, maybe a scrap or something. And while I was in Fort McMurray, the first few years, I got in a couple relationships, and we had to deal with miscarriages. And for me, I never showed up for them. I didn't know how to be present for the woman I was with. And if you've experienced it, it is painful for a kid that maybe one day wanted to be a father and show up. Now it is going to happen and it is taken all away. But I didn't know how to express it other than drink. And I would leave them hanging, and I can still see it today. Thankfully, I've got a relationship with them. I've, made my amends, if you will. But sometimes we still talk about it. My life would have been much different. And I would continue on partying. I would go on everywhere. I would drink and drive. It became regular to me, like buying coffee or a Red Bull. I'm always drinking and driving everywhere. Saskatoon, La Loche, Fort McMurray. Wherever possible, I was stopping at the liquor store before I took off. It became regular for me. Every hockey tournament I went to. When I was 23, my daughter was born. I met her mother in Fort McMurray. But also at the same time, when my daughter was born, I was introduced to a drug called cocaine. Cocaine is not something that is always talked about, but we see it in our communities every day. I said one word and I got everyone's attention. That's how powerful it is. I was hooked on cocaine before I'd even done it, because I made myself believe I knew my friends had gone through it. And I would say, hey, bro, let's go get this. I never done it. But the behavior that I associated with it before I even rolled up a dirty dollar bill on a dirty countertop in the bathroom with 4 other dudes, I was hooked. It's okay that I'm a cocaine addict. Before I even done it, I was hooked. And then it became regular. Every time I'm drinking and driving, I would stop at the liquor store, and then I would stop at a dealer, because the next tourney I was going to, I knew they wouldn't have any there. Every time you go out to have dinner at Boston Pizza or whatever restaurant, I would have a drink, and then the first thing we would do is just call the dealer. The dealer's on the way already. They don't tell you that on social media. They don't tell you this on social media when they're shotgunning a beer to see who is the fastest, when they're posting who has. They don't tell you that one day you're going to be hooked, do they? We see it all the time on the live videos, but we never talk about it until someone's gone, right? I never swore at anybody. The language here today is clean, but it's heavy. And we go through this every day. Your students, maybe. You personally. For some of you, you might be the only safe space your student has, like I did in school. My mother would send me, I would be laying in bed and give me breakfast and made sure I went to school. And I repaid her by being a cocaine addict. Now I've got a daughter. Remember when I said I would show up? There were times that I wouldn't see her for months at a time. I was in another relationship. I had met her mother for this one. I don't mind admitting these things that I've already dealt with. For some of you, it might be, man, this guy's I can't say that word, but you get it. In this relationship I was in, I was never a good boyfriend. I had drug her through the mud. I'd be going to these tournaments and chasing women and partying and snorting drugs. It's a lifestyle that was associated with hockey and I lived it. They don't tell you that on social media when it looks fun, and every time a fight breaks out that someone might be seriously harmed, because all we knew was anger. My sister was assaulted one time. I remember her calling me, and I got charged for going after the person. So I spent a night in jail, which I'm very fortunate, because I could have been a lot worse. I had 6 months probation, something like that. But I would always push the limits. If that PO would have caught me, I would have done more than a day or a night. And I have this photo my friends took that reminds me, right? As we go on, and my daughter, she was born in Moose Jaw. I remember the night before we were partying here, and I'm driving to Moose Jaw, and I start crying. How am I going to be a dad? I never grew up with a dad. My dad was gone since I was 7 years old. I can probably be a mom. She told me that one day. You're like a dad, mom. You cook, you clean, you do everything. I said, well, raised by a single mother. But there were times I wouldn't show up. Now I'm doing the same things. I'm addicted to cocaine. And partying is my life. I'm paying my child support. I think I'm doing the right thing. My time would have been much more valuable than the money that I gave her mother. But I'm very thankful for their mother and their family. As bad as I was towards her and the things that I had done, they made space for us. Anytime I would come around, because it costs a lot of money. Sometimes we're traveling to Saskatoon, Prince Albert, to stay with family, changing her diaper on the highway, and I had to learn all of that stuff. I had to become a dad when I wasn't even taught. So she was on the highway since she was 11 months old with me. And I'm very thankful for her and her family and her mother that they did that, because we have a great relationship today. Sometimes we fight. You know, she's 12 years old now. She wants Sephora all the time for some reason. How many 12-year-olds do you guys have that just want to go to Sephora? And this some kind of bubble product or giant elephant or something like that. Elephant? Yeah. And she doesn't get her way. She knows. She's my baby though, and I'm thankful. There was an incident that occurred with my daughter. You know, when you have kids, if you hurt my kid, I'm going to hurt you. You have that mentality. There was an incident that happened with my daughter in daycare. She was only 2 years old. We thought that she had been assaulted in some way. And I told her mother, and I got real angry right away because that's all I knew. And I said, I'll be there, find out what happened. As I'm on my way to Medicine Hat, because they live in Medicine Hat now, shortly after she was born, they moved to Medicine Hat. Her grandfather retired. On my way to Medicine Hat, I ended up in Edmonton for 3 days. I was drunk and high. See the things that I grew up with, and now I'm doing it. Something so serious, and now my kid, her dad is drunk and high in Edmonton. They don't tell you that on social media when they try to glamorize it and normalize it, that when you're 19, you should grow up. Maybe they should say, we don't know how you're going to react to it. Maybe, hold off. Because each person is different. But I would party for 3 nights and drunk and high. I finally got some sleep. I tried to leave one of the nights in the middle of the night, and they said, no, don't go. On the last day, my buddy threw me some drugs, and when you're on drugs and you're driving, the paranoia is crazy. The paranoia takes over, and you're driving, and the speedometer is not even leaving 100. It's like glued to it. You think that every vehicle passing or coming is a cop. But I made it there. I never killed anybody. I got lost several times. If you had been through Edmonton and Medicine Hat down Highway 36, and there's so many little towns. And I made it there. The next day, her mother left. She gave us the place to stay in her house, in her apartment. And while I was there, you see, I had never slept in a few days. I'm supposed to be spending time with my daughter, but I'm passing in and out because I hadn't slept. I get up one time and to go use the washroom. I noticed my daughter had gone to the washroom. Her dad's passed out. My daughter's there. Now she's got a dirty bum. It's not a very good feeling when you're doing it to your kid now. They don't tell you that on social media or say, hey, bro, try this. Just put it on your gums. Your mouth will go numb. That's it. They don't tell you that on social media. And in that moment, I knew that this was me. As a kid, those nights waking up to Ernest Muniaz or George Jones and people fighting. Now my 2-year-old is going through that. And in that moment, I knew what I had to do. I would ask for help. It's kind of scary asking for help, isn't it? Especially when you know you should get the help you need and you're afraid to reach out. I called one of my friends who I knew had gone through treatment. I said, hey, Mike, how do I do this? What do I got to do, man? This cocaine is taking over my life. My daughter's going to the washroom alone and she's playing alone. It's very sad. My girlfriend at the time, I would tell her, I'll get help. If I get in an incident at work, I will get help. That's crazy to think about. The machines that you operate. If you've been in Fort McMurray and you've seen the machines, I was willing to kill somebody to get help. They don't tell you that on social media when they try to glamorize it and make it look fun. Just do one. They don't tell you that. And I would make my way home to Fort McMurray. I lived there for 14 years, and I called my supervisor, hey, I need help. So they got me in touch with a counselor. I would be with a counselor for the first time, and prior to that summer, I took like a month vacation. I went to Craven and all that stuff, and towards the end of it, I went to with my daughter and her family. Her grandmother's got a camper in Rock Lake, BC, just outside Fernie. So it was a good time. I got to do some family stuff with them, and anytime we got to do stuff together, it was always good. And I had to go home and get back to work. I went to Saskatoon. I had to pick up some stuff, and when I got there, I went down to the west side of Saskatoon here. I met the dealer. I picked up my drugs. I snorted my 2 lines of cocaine, and I'm driving down Circle Drive, and I feel my throat closing up, and I'm having an overdose. They don't tell you that when they say, bro, just put it on your gums, that it'll be okay. One day you might overdose. I was always driving with booze, and I drank whatever I could that it just leveled me out. And in my mind, I thought, oh shit, my mom's gonna find out. My mother, who brought me breakfast while I laid in bed because I didn't want to go to school and she wanted to make sure that I was successful. That's the first thought that came to mind. They don't tell you that on social media. The people that you're gonna hurt. And I pulled through. Thank God I make it back to Fort McMurray. Thank God that whole vacation cost me all my money. You see, now when you're a kid on welfare and you got a 6-figure salary, you think it's like endless. Every year we'd get a bonus like cows and plows, right? Everyone's just, I got cows and plows before I got cows and plows. And I'm thankful that money was gone as I was going to see the counselor that whole month. I went out one night, it was always regular. For some reason, we just go to some friend's house. We stopped going to the bars and go to a friend's garage. And when it was done, we would start fighting with each other because this person bought this time and then this person didn't contribute, and you're doing too much. And some of you may know what it's like. And I would go home and I'd rented a room, so I would isolate. But one time I didn't want the party to end, that I drove across town into Abisan, and I picked up drugs and snorted my drugs, snorted what I thought was cocaine, but instead it was crystal meth. They don't tell you that one day you might be buying crystal meth. You never know what it's cut with. But thank God I ran out of money. I had no money because I wanted more. That little bag kept me up for a couple days, and the pain of doing it, I can still feel it to this day. They don't tell you that on social media. During that whole month, I would stay in my room, and towards the end of it, when my counselor said, "You ever heard of Sage Health Center? It's in Kamloops." I said no, and I started crying because it was becoming real now, that something you want. And So I borrowed some money and I'm thankful for him. So I gotta go see my daughter, bro. Lend me some money before I go to treatment. And I would drive there the whole way to Kamloops. I had to tell my mom and dad. My sister knew that I was going to treatment, but nobody else knew. And then I had to tell them I'm a cocaine addict. My sister said, "Yeah, you know, you're always depressed." Depression is something that is never talked about in a alcoholic home or even sadness. I still deal with depression today. Just shows differently. My dad, I would tell him, I called my dad and said, "Hey, Dad, I'm addicted to cocaine." He said, "Well, you got to do what you got to do before you lose everything like I did." My father, who was mayor at one time and held a good job with the fire cash. What do you call it? CERM, fire suppression, I think it's called. He said, "You got to do what you got to do before you lose everything like I did." And I waited off till before I told my mom. I made it to Kamloops. I thought I was gonna get pulled over one time. I pulled into Golden looking for a liquor store because I ran out of booze, and everywhere I went, you could find drugs because it becomes like a network of friends that are everywhere. Hey, yeah, stop in Calgary. Could get drugs anywhere. And I would ration that little bag the whole night. After that incident with the cop that they pull up behind me, I pulled over on the side of the road and I can still hear the trucks going by, and 6 a.m. comes around and I'm gonna go play golf, you know. I love golf. But I couldn't hit a golf ball. I spend more time partying than playing golf. And I got pissed off. I went and sat on a park bench in Kamloops. I had to do 6 days of treatment. Then right before I went into Phoenix Center, I had to call my mom. My mother, who made sure I went to school and wanted me to be successful. I said, "Hey, Mom, you know, it's not just drinking, it's cocaine." And my mother cried like someone died. You know, and you're breathing really heavy, you find out someone is gone, and I still remember it today. I would check into that detox center for 6 days. I turned 26 in there. It was my birthday, September 13, and the 18th is my birthday. I think I left on the 19th. I'm not exactly sure, but after that, I would. You know, it's funny when you're in addiction, you don't care that you don't eat or sleep as much, and now I'm getting sober, and this was a government place, so we ran out of food. And now all of us addicts are complaining that we have no food. You know, it's funny how that happens. We didn't care when we're in active addiction. I remember one time they warmed up chili and just added onions. The next day, it was leftover chili and onions. And by the end of it, we were just snacking on oranges. But I would do 42 days of treatment, good treatment. The pain I carried from my dad, I had to deal with, had ceremony. I was introduced to an elder who's still in my life today. He picked me up in this little car, no bigger than, you know, probably from here to there. He taught me how to smudge and made me hold his eagle feather. And he took me to his labyrinth and I'm going to sing a song for your mother. And I just cried because I knew what I'd done. And I repaid her by being a cocaine addict. 42 days. I remember it was Halloween. I got up right early. I had to drive to Medicine Hat. My daughter and I, we were going to go trick-or-treating. I dressed up as Woody and she was Elsa. You know, when you got a 2-year-old, you watch Elsa for about 18 times during the day. Man, oh man. But Elsa tells you everything. Just let it go. Let it go. And I got there and remember I was still in a relationship, but at this time she's talking to another guy and nothing is going my way. I'm going into, you know, it's good and it's bad. It's like that Facebook relationship, the new one your cousin or friend just got into. They're posting pictures and then all of a sudden they're fighting and then they're back together. That's what early recovery is like. I'm going to meetings and these 12-step programs and I've got a sponsor, and September 14 was that first clean date. 5 months later, nothing's going my way. Mom, I'm 5 months clean. It's her birthday, February 14th. 3 days later, I pick up my brother and boom, we're at this stuff again. I relapse. Call him 2 days later and I don't even know what I did for the last 2 days. I would start this whole thing all over again. Something that I wanted, I would go for 2 weeks straight. For 2 weeks, I sat in the basement and there were times I'm in, paranoia. And the guy, I just talked to him the other day and he said, yeah, I went through that with you too. And I did the same thing. This time I called my supervisor and I told him what happened. They said, okay, you're going to Edgewood this time to Nanaimo. And guess what I did? Same thing I did the last time. I drove high and drunk to Nanaimo. I woke up just outside of Banff. My first meal was on that ferry that day. And I remember getting off the ferry and sitting in my, reading a book. I was reading a book and then I got off the ferry on my way to Edgewood. There was a liquor store. I was stopped at a red light, liquor store on my right, and I just had to go straight and the left and I'd be checking into Edgewood. But me, in my attic thinking, I thought, I'm going to prolong this a little bit and I'll just sit in my truck somewhere and drink. One last hurrah, But I had enough. My body hurt. I'm a pretty slim guy. My Lululemons didn't fit anymore. Yeah. Can you imagine being skinnier than this? But my body hurt and I had enough. That was March 4th, 2015. I went into that treatment center in Nanaimo. And I've been clean ever since. March 5th this year, I celebrated 9 years of sobriety. And thank you. I hope one day, we don't have to, our young people don't have to celebrate sobriety because it's not easy, right? It is something to be celebrated. I don't celebrate. We have a piece of cake every year. My daughter, for the first 5 years, let's have cake. Daddy, what are we having cake for? When you're 5, I'll tell you. And now she knows. She's I've done this to a youth conference, probably same amount of kids, and she listened. She doesn't like hearing it. She'd rather me MC. Hint, hint, organizers. But I had to do the work. I've been sober 9 years, but it never ended. Some people, you think that it's all rainbows and sunshines, and then the people at home, you think you're better than us. Hey, how many people hear that? Yeah, I'm trying to be better than I was yesterday. What's wrong with that? The lateral violence, the shaming, right? It's like we are programmed. The thinking, the mentality is that we're supposed to be this way and just remain stuck. And when you get sober, Someone's trying to bring you down. And I'm thankful for my golf buddies in Fort McMurray. They never said, here, just have one. It was only my friends and family that did that. I'm thankful for my friends in Fort McMurray that we'd go on golf trips and I would drive for them. They'd party and you want a water or something? I don't put myself in those situations all the time, but I'm thankful for them. But that first year of my sobriety, every month that I would get to another, it was March 5th, the 5th of each month, I'm stressed. I'm going through this stuff where I don't know how to process these emotions and I'm having bad dreams and oh, I made it 60 days, 90 days, 180. I didn't go to the 12-step meetings and I met someone on the golf course that I'd seen in there and he said, "Oh, are you cured?" And we both laughed and I went back and the elder, he's still in my life today. I called him that day. It's number 9 today. He said, "Oh, it's your clean day." Huh? Well, I made it this far. I might as well keep going. That first year of my sobriety was difficult, and the next few years that grief and loss, and then I'm sure a lot of people are gonna connect with this part. That first year of my sobriety, my community, we dealt with a school shooting. Everyone knows about this. My youngest sister, my dad, and his wife, that they adopted. She was hit, and she's still with us today. And thank God. A few months later, my cousin committed suicide. At my grandfather's house. Now I'm going home to dig more graves. I get to spend more time to that kid. My dad, I got to have a relationship over digging graves because a lot of times when I go home and it's for an event and funerals and right. And I remember one of my friends said, we only see each other when someone dies. It's pretty true, isn't it? It's not it's not our fault. We have our own lives and we want to do other things and I'm going through that relationship I was in while I was in treatment that time. She had left me. I never dealt with that. So I never grieved that and I got into another relationship. I have a son now too. They tell you in early recovery, stay away from. I'd say 5 years, but I didn't listen. But I have a son now too. He lives in Alacross. And in 2017, I go to work one day and I got this feeling and I'm sitting in a lunch shack and I get a call and you're not supposed to have a phone in a mine. And I pulled out my phone when I got on a dozer and hey, call me. And then my brother Rambo, he committed suicide. And I tried to hold it in and how are they gonna find out? I said, call this guy here. He's my supervisor. Get me. And then I just broke down. That was year 2 of my sobriety. I'm going home again to dig another grave. I would go through a depression for months. I wouldn't go to work. And then the company I work for, Syncrude Canada, they said, we're going to send you away again. This time sober. I would go for 2 weeks to Sage Health Center. I really love that place. It's in Kamloops. It really helped me a lot. And Rick was there and I would do 2 weeks and go through the motions and I felt alive again. I was, I asked for help again and it only did me good. It's so scary to ask for help, but it only does us good. And in the first time when I was treatment, maybe you've done this with your kids, you make the vision board and what it was like, what happened. So I made one. And in the third one, I would spend time with my daughter. I put bouncy castles and go to Philadelphia, see the Rocky statue, and receive an eagle feather. And that was one of the things I always wanted because of the significance and the honor of receiving an eagle feather. And after that 2 weeks, Rick, he said, you earned this. He gave me an eagle feather. And I would give that feather back for my brother any day because it wasn't easy to go through that, to go through the emotions and not drink. I stayed sober through this the whole time. And I would leave there and continue on. And, and a lot of times we push things aside or grief, it just has no schedule. One day you'll be having a good day in a conference like this, you might get hit, all of a sudden you're crying. It happened to me last week. It has no schedule. If you know this, we accept that we lose our family relatives, but we still have to cry and release that emotion. The following year, I wake up one morning, I had 2 hip surgeries. That's why I'm skinnier. 2 hip surgeries. I had my second one. My grandparents, I wake up one day, my grandmother is gone. My grandmother, who they would send me away to P8 for, I spent a lot of time at Carnival Bingo. It's a good place. They got good popcorn. They always put a lot of butter on there. It's just seeping through the bag. And you almost lick it. But when you got kids, you take them to your parents and you think they're going to go out. That was my space with my grandmother in PA. I miss her today. I'm going home to dig her grave, and she lost her battle to cancer. And I wake up the next morning, my grandfather died. It's a lot of hurt and pain and grief and loss. My grandfather, as a kid, I didn't have much of a relationship with him, but as I got sober, I would come home and he would always ask me for $20 for bingo, that guy. One time I haven't come home in a while and I tried to shake his hand and give me $20, he said, for bingo. But I'm thankful that I got to spend time with him. When he died, he was sober. And I still carry this with me till this day. You do this one day at a time. One day at a time. I got to 9 years. I still carry that with me. I remember sitting with him on his deck, and when I go visit him, right? Going to dig 2 graves in the winter. And I would continue on. I would just stay sober. I would go to the meetings and I would keep in contact with my elders. And every time I'm going through something, I would reach out to them. And then a year later, my dad died. My dad, who I had missed so much as a kid, who I wish I had more of a relationship, even though we did towards the end of his life. He lost his battle to cancer. And I thought, Christmases are lonely. Today, anytime I do something, I want to say, hey, Dad, I'm doing this. But I can't. I go home every time and I sit with him at his grave and I tell him, grief doesn't have a schedule. I go through this with the help of elders in my life and not alone. Anytime I'm asked to speak anywhere, I ask before I go. I pray before I go. before I came in here, I said, help me, teach me, guide me. That is it. But I always wanted to help people in any capacity, and I would continue. I stayed sober through that. You know, in my 8th year of sobriety, I was on a little speaking engagement tour, if you will, with my daughter, and we were going to end up in Edmonton, and we are going to go home. And you know, when you see an eagle, you're going through all this stuff, and you see an eagle, you just oh, thank you, you know. So I'm having this moment. I try to with my daughter in the back seat, and I'm trying to teach her, you know, if you see an eagle, it means that you just say thank you. And it's so I'm having this moment. I'm 8 years clean, and I'm going, and I see this up in the sky, and I get closer, and I get closer. We're just above it, and I notice that it's a crow. Here I'm having this moment. I'm 8 years clean. My daughter, I'm trying to pass on these indigenous teachings. You know, there's a lot of times where it's painful, but don't forget to laugh. That's the Creator teaching me that, you know, it's going to be okay, but don't forget to cry. And I always wanted to help people in any capacity. I didn't want to drive truck anymore or operate a bulldozer. So I applied to university. Man, I was scared though. I had the worst grades ever. I think I looked at them. How many credits you need? 24? I think I had 17, just above 50. Didn't really, you know, I just went and got a mercy pass. Right, Krista? Where are you? Oh, she left. But I would apply to university. I wanted to be a social worker, and I'm still I'm almost done. I'm in university right now, and it's so scary being in university, right? For a kid that had no money, that made a lot of money, now I'm going back to band funding for $1,300. So, you know, if you're in here and you went through university, you know the hardships, you know, thank you. You know how good ramen noodles can be if you get creative. It's very gourmet for the non-Indigenous gourmet. For the Denes and Crees gourmet. But we got it through. I wanted to quit so many times. How am I going to manage money? I still don't know how to manage money. Anybody else have that problem? Yeah. But in that first year of university, we're in the pandemic. We're all out of toilet paper. China lily too. That one's more devastating. Was the China lily? Remember they had a bad batch and then you couldn't get any. We could wipe our butts with clothes. Just don't take our China lily anymore. But I would start a podcast. I was on a phone call with one of my friends and I posted that on social media. That's how Dene Ati podcast started. One little video in the Dene language. And people encouraged me more, and I raised money, and I had these draws, and I'm very thankful for the ones who supported. And I wanted to honor my dad in naming my podcast, because my dad was a broadcaster. He was part of NBC. His name is Snoopy. Wilbert Snoopy Janvier is my dad. Sometimes he left me in PA Inn and Mortar Inn, but so they go party. Oh, you guys know about it too? PA Inn. Remember back in the day you could rent games? I don't hate them. I don't hate my parents. They did what they could. They taught me how to survive and be a hustler. But my dad, I wanted to honor him, and instead I come up with Dene Yati podcast, Dene speaking, Dene language podcast. A podcast that was done in the Dene language. I made about 7 videos. I would call people. I wouldn't tell them I'm going to interview them. I just hit the record button. And it was a lot of fun. One guy crashed in a plane and I interviewed him. He survived. I called him 9 lives because he had been in so many accidents. So we had a lot of fun during the pandemic. And I'm still going today, just one day at a time, one episode at a time. I would interview people from all over Turtle Island, the Navajo people. I put it out there, and we have this historical relationship somehow, right? The Dene language is heard all over the world now. I probably reach about 40 to 100,000 people each month. I'm thankful for the elders that share with me. Sometimes they don't want to be recorded. A lot of people get shy. Some elders, they just say, hey, I'll just pass on this information to you and just sit with me. You know, I never thought that I'd be advocating for language revitalization through a podcast. My sister, when I started, she said, no, Alianza, this is bigger than us. This event is bigger than all of us, but you're going to take something away from you to take back home and help you. And I didn't know what it meant, no, Alianza. Now I understand. I understand what she means. By sharing story, we can connect. By learning the history, we can understand what people went through, residential schools, 60s scoop. We can understand. By being a cocaine addict and sharing the hardships of a young boy, we can understand and we can move forward. That's why in the bio it says sharing story. That's it. That's all I get to do. I don't have a degree yet. It's amazing what we can do with by sharing a story, and the young people that I get to speak with. You see the young people, they get fidgety, and you know, I was recently in Flying Dust or in Meadow Lake, and I said, I miss my dad. And this little boy reached their hand up. He said, me too. That's just like me. That's your students. Be cautious where you tread and just be understanding. I've been able to be invited to see the Pope and just talk to people in Dene. Everywhere I go, I try to interview people and sit with elders. And advocating for me is just one episode at a time. If I can share something or an interview or whatever it is this person has, been able to strengthen my identity, and I hope it has helped a lot of people more, because it is about other people. It's not about me. If I stopped what I'm doing or didn't tell this story the way I did, I'd be robbing you of something, and I don't want to do that. My sobriety is something to share. My language is to share. It is your language that is heard around the world. If you're Dene, I took Cree in university, Absisnahiwa, when, you know, Dance, Willis, Nitsigasin, and I hope that we can value our language. I hope we can value our language as much as we value a degree. Imagine the same hardships you go through going through university, you're cooking ramen noodles, but at the same time, you're going to sit with elders and you're learning language. How fluent would you be? How fluent would you be? If you put the excuses aside, like, I got to get this paper, like we do. If we applied the same thing, as a drug addict, I did whatever I could to get the drugs that I needed. Now I get the sobriety wherever I go. Oh, you can't sober up. There's too many people. I go home and I see lots of sobriety. I go there next week for a AA roundup. There's sobriety there. If you want it, you're going to get it. But how can we make it easy for our kids to understand and maybe learn a word or two a day if we don't value it ourselves? I value what I do and because it helps other people. I've wanted to quit many times, right? I imagine maybe you guys have too. Your first day of school is probably like coming up here in front of a few hundred people, but instead it's kids. It's nerve-wracking. Sometimes maybe you have imposter syndrome and you want to quit. I've wanted to do that many a times. I'll just go back to Fort McMurray. But when every time I would go through that, I would get a message. A residential school survivor would say, "Thank you for your podcast. I went to this school. I'm trying to learn my language. I'm going through a hard time again." And I remember this young lady from one of our communities said, "Hey, I was given away in foster care. I'm trying to find my language. Thank you for your podcast." A linguist in Russia said, "You have a beautiful language. Thank you for your podcast." And this is not my language. It's the Dene people's language. Dene means people. It's all our language. And that's something to be proud of. I hope we can apply that in our daily lives and whatever we can to keep our language alive, because it's strengthened my identity. Because of this podcast, because of my language. It is because of my language I am here. Not because I have a degree or anything. I'm just a cocaine addict that got sobriety, and I share my story and I share my language every week now. And I continue doing that. Every time that I go live, that sometimes there's lateral violence, people that might say something bad, and I didn't create a community that way. I'm thankful for all my guests that help me and help everybody else. Recently, I was gifted a drum. I never thought I would be carrying a drum or learning. And it came from me from Chard, Alberta at a language conference. I've been able to travel and share this story and share my experience, strength, and hope with you guys. And before I end it off, I want to challenge all of you. Everybody knows the medicine wheel, right? We all know it. Maybe we use it. I want to challenge you, and you leave here. How does language impact each element of your being? Emotional. You can understand what you're feeling. You can connect emotion through your language. Physical, you can sit with an elder and laugh and joke. Mental, you think that way in Dene or Cree. And spiritual, you connect to that higher being, a ceremony and carrying a drum and trying to learn the songs and smudging. Those are just some. But I challenge you guys as you go home and you fill out more and you pursue it. One thing I have in common with the drug addict that is still using is that we both want to be sober. One's doing it and one's trying to find a way and waiting for something to happen. I was that guy. Today I want sobriety. I have a desire to stay sober. I don't do this alone. I reach out to the elders in my life. I don't have 10 people. I have 2, and my family, the people might support me. When it comes to language, there's teachers that I can talk to. What does this mean? Right? I've been able to do a lot of cool things because I share my language. And I'm very thankful for that. I'm very thankful MLTC took a chance on me and allowed me to come up here and share my story with you, share my hurt, my pain, my successes. Success to me is just one day at a time. I don't celebrate a lot. It is an honor, to receive a drum. I cried on social media. I thought I would cry today, but it wasn't that time. But I hope we're able to connect and we can move forward like this and you can understand your young people more because I spoke to them. There's some that I connect with. They might be in your class and you might be able to help them. Thank you for having me today. Masi Chonahosia for allowing me to share. Holy. My throat has just gone dry. Thank you. Masi. 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 Thank you. Thank you. Thank
On
you.
behalf of MLTC Willis, thank you for sharing your story today. I've known Willis a long time. I haven't heard his story, so to share that vulnerability is amazing. Like you said, stories are healing. So I do want to share something with the crowd today is we have our youth Red Talks tomorrow. We have 5 of our youth from our communities and they're here to share their story. So I encourage you tomorrow from 11 to 12. We're in Centennial A room. That's all I want to say about our youth. But Willis, if you're around tomorrow, come and listen to our kids. So thank you.
Thank you. Actually, questions?
No.
Oh, actually, I traveled to Calgary today. One of the things is you get invited, The Tsuut'ina people are Dene people if you never knew. And I'm going to travel there today and they're going to record a podcast with them. So I look forward to learning more about them and how we can help each other. So thank you. Fireside chats. Is that here? Is that it? Okay. Okay. Masi, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Marcy Willis. Kado dana halo honi nak dana hahore nilegule dana halhoti. Tota dana hasugauli ndenjai se dultihi se kuhadan multanu. Se kuhatulu dan usugauli. Se kuhan bekwan hodon elilu. Se kuhodon eltene tena hedili. A year. The safest place in Nila. Marcy no halo si. Nand se kuhadon multanu se kutero niundan usugauli ha. Yanado ba se kutaneni. Nuhal hol ni Willis se kuhel niun dant uhubal hoy ai. Toke sugao toke sugile huyahe. The teachers, the guidance that he received growing up from the mentors that are sitting in this room has given him a road where now he can share his pain, his sorrows, his culture, his language, which is what we focus on doing here as teachers and educators. So with that, I'd like to thank Willis again. Give him another round of applause. That's inspiring. Thank you so much, Willis. I'm just going to give you a little bit of information here. We have someone walking around. He's got an orange sweater. He's way in the back there. When our tribal chief, STC tribal chief, Mark Arkham, spoke yesterday about the shelter, the risk the shelter is in right now, he's got the petition. He's going to walk around and lay them on the table. Just sign, whoever's at the table, sign the petition and leave it on the table. And then we'll have our our baseball team come around and pick them up later. We're going to, I guess we're going to move into what's going to be happening after our nutrition break. We'll be taking our nutrition break pretty soon. But once that's done at 11 o'clock, we have the Canoe Lake Cree Nation Moose Hair Tuffing, Gallery A and B. And the next one is AJ Felix, Language Revitalization in Gallery C and D. Ministiquin Lake Cree Nation Beaded Lanyards. That will be in Central A. Buffalo River Dene Nation, Dene ASLA and TPR in, I have a glare on this, Central B. So that would be after we have our lunch break, our nutrition break, sorry. Our lunch break's not till after that. So everyone, I think we have our snacks out there. Let's take a break for half hour and then we'll come back and meet again before we go into our rooms. Marcito.